So Nice Gaming wanted me to watch this video and react to it. I'm kind of because we were talking about Ash's creation on the ESU podcast, and I've been invited to his podcast, Voices of Era. So hopefully we can get that out there eventually, and let's see what it's about.
Hello, gamers.
Controversial
it's nice.
MMO
knows
housing.
that housing
in
is
Ash's
the
creation.
true end game is having a nice day. Today, we will discuss potentially the best and worst housing system to come to MMOs. This will, of course, be on the upcoming MMO, Ashes of Creation.
If it ever comes out.
I haven't played every MMO out there, but I did a lot of research into this video, which is primarily why it's been a while since I've uploaded. I would like to provide a brief example of housing from an MMO that I've made, but invite you to discuss housing and MMOs that you've played in the comments below as well. However, the main focus will be MMO Ashes of Creation. There's a lot of reasons that I feel this work in progress MMO will be a housing mainstream, but also a lot of reasons I feel it can scare off the housing enthusiasts and make them kind of want to stay in their safe space with their current MMOs. Before we begin, I'd like to thank everyone who remembered to subscribe to the channel, and of course everyone who supported by becoming YouTube channel members. This truly means a lot. We also recently got started on Twitch, and I appreciate the follows and support there as well. Now let's get into it. In my opinion, housing has went from a very small niche in MMOs to quite a large part of them, and in fact, I think it's what some players consider their main gameplay loop or fun factor. Housing with—
You know, I didn't realize this until like Becca showed me like these streamers, and these streamers play like Sims, and they have a huge audience, and there's so many people who love Sims. I'm just like, I didn't realize housing or housing simulators were so popular. Obviously, when we look at specific MMOs like ESO or even Final Fantasy XIV, housing can be popular, but I just didn't realize to what extent a lot of people would love to build houses in a game, or I guess like in the Ashes Creation case, stake land.
Very in-depth features and customization can have players fooled into thinking they can quit their day job and just become an interior decorator. And the footage in the background, I'll have some footage from the Elder Scrolls Online as a brief example. The customization of homes is almost limitless here, but even more so enticing to players on the real estate market is the amount of utility furniture, as I'll refer to it as. From crafting tables that are conveniently in your home to craft specific armor sets, to transmute stations to transmute gear traits, bankers and merchants. There's just so many housing conveniences available at your home so that you don't even have to venture out into town or find their inconvenient location out in the real game world. Not only that,
which is a double-edged sword when you have of course pay for convenience in player housing to the extent where you don't really need to go out too much in the open world. That kind of kills off the open world population. For role-playing in ESO, the housing update did kill a lot of the overland role-playing, because of course everyone had their own spaces and they didn't need to be disrupted by people who wanted to disrupt role-play events. So there's that too.
But utility stations to refill your resources and combat dummies to see that DPS meter that you will never see in Ashes. There's just so much more than just varying visual sets of furniture. All of these features and streamlined benefits makes housing in the Elder Scrolls Online quite addicting for some.
I think it's great. And recently I've announced and let people know that I don't want to judge for ESO housing contests anymore, because I feel like I have seen and experienced everything possible. Nothing surprises me anymore in ESO housing. That might hurt some feelings, but nothing, like, I've seen it all at this point. And you know, part of the reason why I judged for a lot of housing contests for the past however many years is because I like being surprised. And a big part of the enjoyment of housing, at least for ESO, is a surprise. And I think the reason why that is because everyone has the same houses. And by that, in ESO, I don't know if Nice is going to mention it in this video, everyone has the same, like, can buy with gold or cash the same house. Like this right now, he's showing the Earth Tier Cavern. I can get it, anyone can get it. It's just instanced housing. So what happens after that is how you arrange furniture, how you decorate, how you cobble structures, how you make it your own, essentially. But I think that's a limiting thing. I think that's a limitation one way, at least in terms of creativity, if everyone has the same structural or housing layout. Whereas in Ashes of Creation or even in Sims, you can make your own kind of like housing or structural layout and build from there rather than building from a template, if that makes sense.
In part, one of the reasons that ESO is able to actually sell virtual homes for over $100. And no, I was not being hyperbolic, unfortunately. I've been in homes on ESO that has amounted to more than the average down payment of an actual IRL home. The features with ESO housing isn't exactly super unique compared to other MMOs. That's an exaggeration.
Come on, no one's
why do I bring it up?
Well, real house down payment on ESO housing,
in the Elder Scrolls Online.
Unless they're
now with Ashes
huge
of Creation,
whale, bro.
It will feature 4 forms of housing, and this is not even the only reason I think it will be among the best housing in MMOs. You have apartment housing, freeholds, inns, and static housing. However, I want to focus on 2 forms of housing in Ashes of Creation.
Dude, who would want apartment housing
like
anyway,
the apartments
for real?
And freeholds. Now, Ashes of Creation has a
imagine
very
coming
intricate
from your
node system.
Imagine coming from your 9 to 5 and shit, and being like, "All right, time to decorate my apartment in Ashes."
Enough time to detail that in this video, as it's already going to be pretty long.
Sure.
But I will do a very, very brief summarization or synopsis of it that just really won't do it justice, but hopefully it'll be enough for you to understand what I'm saying. So there will essentially be player-built cities and towns, or rather these cities will develop as a result of the player's influence on the world. I highly recommend watching Nodes 1 and Nodes 2 on the official Ashes of Creation channel that I'll have linked in the description. And I just recommend it because I just can't really do it justice. It's not the most up-to-date information in those videos, but they're very inspirational, and it paints the perfect picture to understand nodes and is the best showcase on why they are important in Ashes of Creation. And well, long story short, you become a citizen of one of these nodes, right? You can then earn an apartment inside of this node. Now that you're a citizen, you now have an instance-based apartment / instance-based housing, which is great. This is something similar to what we saw in the Elder Scrolls Online earlier, right? Some good old instance-based housing. Apartment housing will be somewhat exclusive, and though it's not the highest form of housing, it is great, and it's what most MMO players are used to. So far, so good, right? Well, next up, we have some of the coolest housing in MMOs, freeholds. Now, freeholds are simply an amazing concept. These are actual in-world homes and plots of land. I'll actually be showing some background footage here of freeholds from the Ashes of Creation Freehold stream, and be sure to check it out in full if you're really interested. The location of your freehold can actually be placed by you, the player, as long as it's in the zone of influence that your node or its vassal nodes are in. I can't stress enough that this is not instance-based housing. This is truly a part of the game world, a legitimate home out there, which is so cool. It's just such a great concept to me. This detail in itself can make this a housing main's dream. There can be so much strategy involved with this, especially when we start talking about businesses later, where you place this home, what unique resource that you place your home next to, and everything like that. This is something that has been done before, I think, in ArcAge, but what's cool about AOC is, unlike some MMOs, you won't see one static house with a bunch of people around it, but upon entering, you enter your version of that home like you see in New World or ESO. That's not exactly the most immersive thing, right? Well, these freeholds and Ashes of Creation, they're true pieces of real estate. Not only that, but these freeholds have an abundant amount of customization. You can create houses of variable sizes on your plot of land, but do keep in mind, the bigger your house or the homestead of that freehold and the more space it takes up on that freehold, which means the less room you have for other interest on your freehold. And as you expect, you can create furniture and customize specific visuals, have cool utility items like you would in any housing. And this is cool and all, and maybe I have your attention, but what if I told you there's also huge economic benefits of having your freehold? Ashes of Creation has 3 classifications of their artisan skill lines, right? There is gathering, processing, and crafting. However, the highest level of processing can only be done at freeholds. This is a great benefit and convenience to the player.
I think that's one thing
ultimately
yield you return kind of missing
on investment.
Or really even New World
but
housing,
you can run
like
businesses off your freehold plot. Whether you want to run a tavern, just farm livestock, have a
farm
smithing
something.
building,
I don't
an
know,
ERP
like, you know what I mean?
brothel, a lumber mill, alchemist building, or whatever you choose. This is the highest tier of housing, and it is said that these parcels of land given to the player are 1.5 acres. The Freehold will have
1.5
a family
acres.
system, and you can grant limited permissions to those family members. You can also have only one owner, of course, but marriage increases family size by 1, and maybe you can mimic these permissions that, both people are the primary holder. Also, a fun fact is Ashes of Creation is a true open world PvP game, but you cannot PvP in the homestead of a freehold, basically giving you somewhere to have immunity from this mechanic. So think of it as a safe space, if you will. I won't keep going into too much details, but there's a lot of potential and a lot of importance with freeholds. So I know what you're thinking. Nice, this all sounds awesome. Why do you think this will be both the best and worst housing? Well, where do I start? Well, what if I told you that you will probably never get a freehold? What if after I told you this, I reminded you that the highest tier of processing can only be done at these freeholds you won't get access to? So if you chose alchemy, animal husbandry, cooking, farming, metalworking, lumber milling, tanning, stonemasonry, or weaving, you would be potentially out of luck if this was your main artisan goals. These freeholds are very limited, and they're meant to be a very exclusive form of housing, so good luck acquiring them. But hey, it's not so bad, right? You're no endgame artisan guy, and you don't need a business in Ashes of Creation. You don't need a ton of livestock or all that fancy freehold stuff. You just want some interior decorating, something similar to your previous MMO. The apartment and node housing will be more than enough. It'll be fine. It's somewhat limited, but you'll be fine, right? You'll become a citizen early enough in these nodes development and get your citizenship, and you got your instance-based apartment or penthouse down packed. You're gonna be good, and you got it all nice and decorated the way you like. The weather is perfect, and you're just in awe about how lucky you are to have been one of those lucky people to get an apartment inside of the node, which happened to be one of the good few nodes that hit max level and became a metropolis node. Life is good. Well, here's the reality. In Ashes of Creation, there is conflict. PvP exists, and there is a thing known as, node sieges. And you're thinking, well, I'm no PvPer. I'm not worrying about all that stuff, but I hope we win the node siege. Well, you may want to participate because, that node siege has ended, and guess what? Your node was successfully sieged. And my friend, you are now homeless, and all that super awesome interior decorating you've been...
I think this is definitely something a lot of people get turned off by, but at the same time, this is a big part of the reason why I love these ideas coming from Ashes of Creation, even if it's not out yet. It's like they're bringing back the MMO and the RPG at the same time, and I've always hated the fact, at least in ESO, you don't really... There's no consequences for not involving yourself, for not... getting involved in the human drama of the game. It's just, everything feels very isolated from one another. So, I mean, if you want a freehold, if you want the apartment or whatever in Ashes of Creation, but, another group of players or another faction of players want to take over your city, you gotta fight for it. You gotta defend it.
Doing over the last month? Yeah, that's what you want, though. Gone. That apartment access and that node, yeah, it's completely gone. Well, what if I told you were one of the lucky few to have gotten a freehold? You'll be fine. Surely you're fine. You got a freehold. Yeah. It can't get hit by that. Everything's fine. Your tavern and that ERP brothel you're running under the table surely will be okay. Wrong. Items stored in a freehold will become lootable if your parent node gets successfully sieged. If your parent node is sieged, your freehold can then be pillaged. And remember that beautiful safe space I mentioned earlier as the homestead of your freehold where players can't PvP you at? Yeah, that's no longer a safe place. And for 2 hours after that node was successfully sieged, your freehold can be attacked. If you survive this 2-hour period after a siege, you then are given a 1-week grace period. Within this 1 week, you better hope that your freehold resides in a zone of influence of a node stage 3 or higher. And if not, please be aware that destroyed freeholds are subject to material loss, and the blueprints for them are mailed to the player to utilize for future placement in order to allow the player to keep that freehold's layout and structure. So yeah,
so you don't lose everything.
Freehold just doesn't up and disappear because you weren't in those zones.
Even if you do lose everything, you
so
don't
yeah,
lose everything,
you may retain your items and get them sent to your mail or something, but you no longer have anywhere to place them. And good luck getting back into that tight real estate market of limited freeholds and apartments and citizenship and everything like that.
However, will just be hard
we must remember that scarcity and conflict is what Ashes of Creation is all about. Perhaps how limited and
unless you organize like a Christmas raid or some
shit in the world of Era is what makes it great. I always say that if gold was as common as sand at the beach and everyone can get it, then not many people would want to wear it and it'll lose its value. But man, if you are able to get it and you worked hard for it, won't it feel so good? And maybe something like freeholds being so limited will breed even more conflict in the world and
which is good.
More node sieges to happen more often, but we'll see. Overall, I'm already a fan of the housing in Ashes of Creation because it has so much real world like real estate value, and the housing is seeming to fit right in with the risk versus reward ideology. And remember, this MMO is a work in progress, so who knows what can change between now and Alpha 2 and Alpha 2.
If Alpha 2 ever comes out, they pushed it to quarter 4 from quarter 3. But yeah, I mean, this is a very nice video. Nice. Thanks for asking me to react to it. But I agree with almost every point made. I also agree that a lot of people will be put off by it. But at the same time, I think it's worth it. I think it's definitely worth the memories, the investment of time in some ways.